me down. No matter how hard reality seems, just hold on to your dreams, yeah. Long as you keep your head to the sky, can we? Long as you keep your head to the sky, you can win. Yes, as long as you keep your head to the sky.
Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and chief White House correspondent. It's nice to be here in sunny LA, sunny and warm LA. Hello. We love all of that. I hope you've had a great Juneteenth week. I have been in touch until you be in touch. Be sure to tap in and listen to A More Perfect Union by following me on social media at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DrNiiQuartelai. Pro tip, type in Dr. Nii, and there I am. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast and never, ever, ever miss an episode. Also, these days, I want you to pick up my new book, Kamala, The Motherland and Me, is available on pre-order. You can pre-order it on Amazon and on Barnes & Nobles. And as of July 23rd, it'll be available just about everywhere books are sold. Kamala, The Motherland and Me. It's an invitation to challenge your assumptions about Madam Vice President, the continent of Africa, and ourselves. And so this has been a labor of love. Can't wait to share it with you here, and also get out on the road across the country and elsewhere, sharing it far and wide. Speaking of sharing, it's time for your National News Roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, the Supreme Court upholds a domestic violence gun restriction. NBC News is reporting that the Supreme Court today upheld a federal law that prohibits people subjected to domestic violence restraining orders from having firearms, taking steps back from its recent endorsement of a broad right to possess a gun. The court, on an 8-1 vote, ruled in favor of the Biden administration, which was defending the law, one of several federal gun restrictions currently facing legal challenges. The ruling indicates that some longstanding gun laws are likely to survive despite the current 2022 decision that expanded gun rights by finding for the first time that there is a right to bear arms outside the home under the Constitution's Second Amendment. And so some big news coming out of the Supreme Court today. Moving along, Trump is focused on Doug Burgum, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio as his VP search enters its home stretch. You know what name I didn't hear? I didn't hear Tim Scott's name. Tim Scott been doing all that gyration. Maybe for not. Former President Trump zeroes in on vice presidential running mates. Top two finalists emerging are North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. In interviews with NBC News, more than a dozen sources wired into the process described an intensifying debate over the strengths and weaknesses of each candidate. We shall see. A third prospect, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, remains in contention, according to some sources, but doubts about his enthusiasm for the job and concerns about navigating a constitutional hangup would require Trump or Rubio to establish residency in another state that has persisted in ways that could jeopardize his chances. And so those are the three names that we're hearing. Again, we're not hearing Senator Tim Scott. We certainly aren't hearing former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, although they have twisted themselves up like a pretzel to try and gain some footing in Trump world. Um, uh, in other news, we know that home buying costs continue to rise and creating an atmosphere that is incredibly unaffordable. We don't need to tell people here in Los Angeles about this. Today's housing market has two competing realities: a cost crunch that shows no signs of stopping, and a stretch of rising inventories and slowing competition that could offer relief for those who can afford it. You see, home buying difficulty fell by half a point to 82.2% in May. That's according to data that was published from the NBC News Home Buyer Index. That easing owes to factors including improved supply and slowing buyer activity. But affordability remains a block for potential buyers. The home buyer cost index, rather, a subcategory that includes home prices and mortgages and insurance costs, increased for the fourth month in a row and remains near an all-time high. The median list price for an average home increased in 70% of U.S. counties from May 2023 to May 2024, with a median increase of $22,000. That is more of an increase than what people are bringing home in their paychecks. The median list price was roughly $444,000, over $75,000 more than the median income household can afford as of May. And so, look, housing affordability, this gap is widening across the country. It's creating an impossible market, and you got to do something about it. You know, it's the future looks bleak in terms of people being able to get a footing into the home buying market. And so, look, again, you don't have to tell people here in LA what the problem is. I think the question is, what are some of the solutions? And so, as we do our work of bringing on folks who are leading change on the front lines, we are looking for experts in home buying trends and housing affordability, and examples of what is working in different parts of the country. And so don't be shy sharing that. You can get at me in the DMs on social media. You can also utilize the open mic feature on the KBLA app and leave me a voice note. You know, if you have some insights, please don't be shy about sharing them. Moving along, the FBI raids the home of Oakland first-term mayor Shang Tao. The Guardian is reporting that federal authorities raided a home belonging to the Oakland mayor as a part of an investigation that included a search of at least two other houses. The raid took place on Thursday morning when FBI agents carried not 10, not 20, but 80 boxes out of a 4-bedroom home that property records linked to Shang Tao, who is serving her first term as the city's mayor. Details about the nature of the raid and investigation remain thin. Our eye on it as they
progressive politics. KBLA Talk.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and delighted to welcome this Friday my friend, our friend, Richard Fowler. He is a Fox News contributor. He's also a contributing writer to Forbes magazine, BET.com, and you might have even seen him recently guest hosting on The Five. Welcome, Richard.
Hello. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday, and you would think that maybe we could take it easy this Friday, but there's still a lot of news popping. The New York Times is reporting that Trump has rapidly eroded Biden's edge in the 2024 cash battle. Former President Trump outraised President Biden for the second consecutive month in May, outpacing his successor by roughly $81 million in donations over the last 2 months, as he rode a surge of financial support after his felony conviction. Should the Biden-Harris campaign be concerned?
Listen, this election, to steal the words of my colleague, it's going to be tighter than a tick. This is going to be very close. I mean, anybody who said that this election wasn't going to be close, I don't know what channel they're watching. This is going to be a very close election. It doesn't surprise me that, we're seeing Donald Trump's fundraising numbers sort of increase. I will say that, a trial for a couple of weeks where you have to be in Manhattan and you have to be in a courtroom every day definitely hampered former President Trump's ability to raise money. Now that the trial is over, he's full speed ahead. And so this is what we should have expected to happen. And now we're going to have to see if, the Biden cash advantage that he's had for the past couple of months will be, will be able to help, keep his campaign afloat. And mind you, to be very clear, the Biden team is still also raising money. They had a fundraiser last week with former President Barack Obama, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Jimmy Fallon, all the Hollywood glitz and glamour. So we're going to have to just wait to see. But these numbers don't surprise me. This election is going to be very close.
Very close indeed. I've also got to ask you, speaking of close, we know that the Biden-Harris campaign has been able to keep farmers, particularly black farmers, firmly a part of the coalition, but there may be signs that that's fraying. U.S. farmers turn towards Biden over Trump's past agriculture policies, but I think this might be a beginning trend. Who knows? For 2 decades, we know that a number of farmers have been ardent Republican Party supporters, and that trend might be changing sometime soon. We know that In important farming states such as Iowa, debates have raged over how another Trump presidency could cost farmers dearly. During Trump's previous tariff campaign that began in 2018, many farmers in Michigan, an election swing state as we know, railed against the former president's actions. And back then, the Trump administration attempted to ease financial pain it inflicted upon the agricultural community, ensuring farmers continue to vote for him by paying out $52 billion in subsidies in 2020 alone. While Joe Biden remains unpopular with farmers, there are folks who say that support for the Democratic Party candidates in rural America may be rebounding. What say you?
Look, I think this is a very interesting story, right? Because what we know to be true is that during the Trump administration, because of Trump's tariff war with China, it cost a lot of American farmers, especially our dairy farmers, quite a lot of money. I mean, American cheese is something that is very popular in foreign countries, especially in the Asian countries. So the fact that, this voting block is, and this is what this election will come down to, right? This election is going to come down to how 1,000 farmers feel in Iowa, or how, how 5,000 Teamsters feel in Detroit. That's how close this election is going to be. So all of these smaller voting bases that people oftentimes don't think about in the grand scheme of a national election will actually play out in a very real way in this upcoming race. I think another group, speaking about farmers, that folks should be paying attention to is, how do Black Muslims show up in this election? I mean, a lot of folks have talked about our Muslim community, and they've really sort of zeroed in on Michigan and Dearborn, Michigan, where there's a huge number of Palestinians. But people, when you're talking about the Muslim community, don't forget Philly. Philly has one of the highest populations of Black Muslim Americans, African Americans who religiously identify as Muslim. How will they show up in this election in 2020? Many of them voted for Joe Biden. Will they continue a trend and vote for Joe Biden in this upcoming election, given the Israel-Palestine conflict? But that's how close this election is going to be. It's going to be how these smaller groups of voters show up on the map.
Yeah, the real silent majority is going to show up and show out, maybe. Moderate Democrats in swing states such as Pennsylvania, to your point, Michigan and Arizona, we know that they outperformed for Biden in 2020 by as much as 15%. And there's research that shows that under the Biden administration, farming income has increased significantly, in large part due to government assistance and a post-pandemic bump in demand for agricultural products. But what's more is polls suggest a large number of rural Americans may vote for a third party or write-in candidates in November, a prospect that would hurt Trump more than Biden. So it's interesting. We've heard a lot of folks talk about how uncommitted voters and perhaps RFK Jr. supporters, Cornel West supporters, that those votes take away from Biden. We're seeing some research that's showing that there's some indication that at least among the agriculture community, those write-in candidates, those folks who vote for third party, actually hurt Trump.
Listen, that doesn't shock me either. I think pollsters are trying to figure out, how will this RFK candidacy, how will the Cornel West candidacy impact the election? And I'll be honest with you, I think in the case of RFK will be a sap on both campaigns, which is why, as my mom would say, a broke clock is right twice a day. It's why you saw both the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign sort of push out the Presidential Debate Commission to create their own new way of doing debates, because in the Presidential Debate Commission frame, it could have been very possible that RFK would have ended up on that stage, right? And so they basically went to the networks and said, hey, listen, how about if we work outside of the commission and we create the debates that we want, that almost and create a little bit of a higher threshold to make it so that we don't see RFK, because we both understand that RFK, we don't know who RFK is going to damage, but we know he could damage both of our campaigns.
I mean, so just yesterday we had James Farr on the show. He's a contributor to LA Progressive, and he contributes to another show here on KBLA, First Things First, hosted by Dominique DePrima. And tonight, here in Los Angeles, he's moderating a forum with Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Melina Abdullah, third-party ticket. Folks can go to @Conversations Live on YouTube to watch it. They can also go to Cornel West's website to watch it. But one of the questions that I shared with him yesterday, and encouraged him to ask if he saw fit. There's been a lot of talk about the U.S. Supreme Court. We just had decision around guns for domestic violence abusers come down today, and I think it's important that folks have an opportunity to hear, okay, well, what would they do? It's kind of easy to run as a third-party candidate and say, well, I'm against a lot of the things that they're for, but okay, well, what are you for? And what would you do? And who would you appoint? And, what would be your philosophy around judicial appointments writ large? And so I want to ask you, Richard, if you were moderating today's conversation with Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Melina Abdullah, what question would you most want to ask?
Well, I mean, I think the question I would ask is, and I think it's the real one, is in the world in which you're not on the ballot in every state, right? Which is the case, and in the world in which there's a likelihood that you guys can pull from one campaign or another. What do you say? What do you want to say to your voters in a world in which you don't win? Right? And the issue, how do you move forward the agenda that you care about in a world in which you don't win?
Yeah.
Now, and the reason why I pose that question is because, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that our two-party system is perfect. I think our two-party system is actually very imperfect. But what we've seen over time is, given the system that we're in, the way to raise issues around racial equity, the way to raise issues or to move issues forward, have always been candidates running for office within the system and uplifting the issue there, right? And making that issue, case in point, and this issue doesn't regard race, but it's an issue that I think it's worth talking about. When Joe Biden first started out running for president, he was against canceling student loan debt at all, period. And because of Elizabeth Warren, because of Bernie Sanders, because of many of the candidates who were in the race running for president, Kamala Harris, who's now his vice president, they moved him on that issue. And so while many of them ended up dropping out the race, he ended up being the Democratic nominee for president. He picked up this issue from them, and now he's forgiven, over billions of dollars
over $164 billion in student debt relieved, of which there are a number of people that we know who have benefited from that. I think of my family member in Norfolk, Virginia. I think of friends here in California who have enjoyed that. And look, when we talk about building Black wealth, we can't ignore that is a part of the equation. It's not all of it, but it's part of it. When we come forward more with journalist Richard Fowler, I want to get his take on a question that came up in the White House briefing room this week. Our friend Jaron Keith Gaynor from the Griot asked White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre about what the administration is doing to ratchet up support to protect diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'll listen to that clip and we'll get Richard's reaction when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A federal task force is recommending intensive counseling for children struggling with obesity. The U.S. Preventative Services Task Force published its recommendations and is calling for behavioral interventions for kids age 6 and older with a high body mass index. The new guidelines replace their 2017 guidance that only recommended that children be screened for obesity. The new report claims that nearly 1 in 5 U.S. kids is obese and that the rate is higher among Latino, Black, and Native American children, as well as children from lower-income families. May 2nd will now be known in Michigan as Negro Leagues Day. Governor Whitmore signed a bill this week on the national holiday of Juneteenth that recognizes the liberation of the last people enslaved 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist says as a Black man and a Detroit native, he is particularly proud to see the Negro Leagues be recognized by the state. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Enjoy the rest of your night and, of course, travel home safe. A 15 to 20-minute backup is running heavy in Hollywood on the 101 South between Sunset Boulevard and the 10 7th Street interchange. In Boyle Heights, expect a 15-minute backup from the 101 on the 5 North after the 510 Northern split as a crash remains on the right shoulder. Over in Groveland Heights on the 60 East off-ramp to Fullerton Road, a crash is currently blocking that ramp, causing heavy traffic flow in the area.
Need to hire? You need Indeed. Their all-in-one platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For those of you still scratching your head about the Lakers hiring J.J. Redick as their new coach, there's a pretty impressive list of NBA coaches who got their first coaching job without any prior experience. Redick is the latest NBA coach in this unique category. Check out these names of NBA head coaches who had never coached before getting hired. Doc Rivers, Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas. All of these guys had some measure of success with their teams. Rivers had the Clippers in the playoffs in all 7 seasons when he was their coach. Kerr has 4 NBA championships with Golden State. Just want to let Lakers Nation know that it's possible. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA, join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds, 60 minutes of sports chatter with some flavor. You can join the conversation, 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Avitarus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising at kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse Limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and he is Richard Fowler. He is Fox News contributor. He's also a contributing writer to Forbes magazine, Forbes.com, to BET.com, and you can even catch him on The Five, the #1 rated show on cable. Welcome, Richard.
Hello.
And so, it's Friday. We like to try and keep it light, but there are some headlines that we just can't get around. And we know, for example, some news made in the White House press briefing room, or at least an attempt to make some news related to the White House calls for the White House to react to what's happening to the Fearless Fund. There are a lot of orgs that are doing what they can to protect diversity, equity, and inclusion. But several groups are calling on President Biden and his administration to do more to protect diversity, equity, and inclusion following a series of successful court battles led by conservative groups. The Fearless Fund, which provides grants to Black women-owned businesses, recently had its program suspended by a federal appeals court over the claim that it discriminated against white business owners. The fund's co-founder, Arian Simone, has since called on President Biden to take executive action to, quote, safeguard DEI initiatives and funding rights for marginalized groups. Similarly, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights this week sent a letter to President Biden urging him to do all he can to promote, protect, and expand programs to lead DEI and accessibility. And then the Grio's White House correspondent, Jaron Keith Gaynor, our friend, asked Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre about these concerns and whether or not the White House believes it's doing enough to protect DEI programs amid all these lawsuits. Karine said that the administration's policies have led to an increased number of Black businesses and vowed that it would keep providing economic mobility for all Americans. Is that enough, Richard? Could the administration be doing more?
I think there's no question that what we've seen from this administration, it's something that they don't do the best job of talking about, and they need to do a better job of talking about it, is they have expanded access to capital for Black businesses, the Department of Treasury, the Freedmen Banks program. They've also worked to increase the number of Black and brown and women and veteran contractors, and they should be talking about that more. But what we're seeing happening in the courts, specifically around the Fearless Fund, and it's the same group, to be very clear, the same group that pushed forward the case that basically upended affirmative action is the same group that is also suing the Fearless Fund for them not helping white women. And what they're trying to do is upend many of the policies and many of the institutions that have gone out of their way to work on closing the inequity gap that exists between Black and white Americans in this country. And I think it's really important that we zero in on just how stark and how deep and how wide that gap is for so many families. And I think the best example of that, I was actually having this conversation with somebody yesterday on my flight home from DC, is think about the GI Bill, right? The GI Bill is, for many white families after World War II, was their ticket to the middle class, and for some, their ticket to upper class and wealth. For many Black GIs, Tuskegee Airmen, folks who folks who fought on both in the West, in the European theater as well as the Pacific theater, they didn't have access to that GI Bill. They couldn't benefit from those low interest mortgages They couldn't benefit from those small business loans that were being given out. And as a result of that, these veterans were severely disadvantaged, and their descendants were also severely disadvantaged. Whereas then vets who were World War II vets who benefited from the GI Bill bought car dealerships and dry cleaners and pizza places, and they passed that down their family lineage for decades on, and now they're multi-million-dollar organizations. And so what the Fairless Fund is trying to do and other groups are trying to do is work on closing that gap. And there are forces, and that's the only way to describe them, there are forces that are actively working to stop that gap from being closed. And we should, and I'm going to use the phrase in the right way, it was a phrase that was created in the 1950s, folks, KBLA, we've got to stay woke on this particular issue because it matters.
It matters a great deal. It matters a great deal, and that's why we continue to follow it. We continue to offer our leaders, learners, and listeners updates on this. A few weeks ago, we had Alfonso David, who's the lead legal counsel for the Fearless Fund, also president CEO of the Global Black Economic Forum. We had him on to give us an update following that decision from the federal court. But look, this is another example of why the courts matter. I just saw a clip on social media from John Legend, who I think was on Pod Save America and was talking about the importance of the courts. And he recognizes that there are a number of people that, may take issue with this or that, may have some level of disappointment in the current administration related to, a whole wide range of issues. But he was laser focused on the courts. And, right now we know that there are, for example, women across the country who are feeling the effects of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Generations of women will continue to feel those chilling effects, if Congress doesn't codify Roe v. Wade. And that means we have to have a Congress, Democratic Congress, that is willing to do that, and a Democratic president that's willing to sign that into law. And so, talk to us a little bit about, what Democrats could be doing better to make the very simple point that John Legend made, which is that, okay, feel the way you feel, but if you need a single reason, the courts is a pretty good reason to turn out in this election in a big way.
Listen, the courts are a really big reason to turn out in this election. We've heard a lot of murmuring. We don't have any of this evidence. None of this is confirmed, but there has been some reporting around the idea that if Trump is reelected, what you will see right away is the retirement of Justice Clarence Thomas as well as Justice Samuel Alito. And so he could replace them with newer, younger justices. And the other thing that we have heard, and we also say that at a time where, Samuel Alito and Justice Sonia Sotomayor are roughly around the same age, right? So the idea that, something can happen, God forbid, to Justice Sonia Sotomayor, it's a real possibility. And we also have to never forget that in the 4 years, beyond just the Supreme Court, which is what everybody talks about, right? Because it's easy to talk about those 9 individuals. In the 4 years of Trump, the impact that Trump has had on the federal bench has been utterly remarkable, right? He has 25% of all federal justices or judges nationwide are judges appointed by former President Donald Trump. And these judges, very intentionally, because of the Federalist organization, are judges that are young. Some of them are, according to the American Bar Association, were unqualified at the time. Some of them had never tried a case in the federal court, but they put them on these benches, some of them 35, some of them 42 years old. Understand that these are lifetime appointments, so they will literally shape America's policy. They will shape American law. They will shape American jurisprudence for the next 4 to 5 to maybe 6 decades. Right? So that means in a world in which you have a Democratic House, or a world in which you have a Democratic Senate, and the world in which you have a Democratic president, There could be a judge in Florida that will call a law unconstitutional, right?
That's right.
Or in the case of Joe Biden's, we talked about student loans in the last segment, Joe Biden passed an executive order. Within seconds of him signing that executive order, a judge in Texas and a judge in Arkansas both heard cases, and they both enjoined or stopped President Biden's executive order from going through in seconds. It took like 2 days, not even a day.
And that is the difference between, building Black wealth or not, right? I mean, it's not insignificant, the fact that people who were paying on their student loans, now can redirect those payments towards investing in their small businesses, scaling their small businesses, investing in all sorts of opportunities to offer their families the kind of economic security that for generations we've been denied. It's not insignificant, right? And so for people that are all about, economic justice, I think, it would be wise for us to take the long view on some of these things. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to Richard Fowler for joining us. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You too. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You've been listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, the quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had leaf filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
In California, the use of man-made stone is causing workers to get silicosis. Silicosis is a fatal disease caused by breathing in silica dust from cutting, polishing, or grinding man-made stone. To prevent silicosis, employers must provide their workers proper equipment, including water systems and NIOSH-approved respirators. Stop dusty and deadly practices. Learn more at worksafewithsilica.org. This is a message from Cal OSHA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
You're listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's about that time for the quiet part out loud. 2020 is not that long away. It's not that long ago. A journalist shot by police while covering the 2020 protests is dying of her injuries. Journalist who was shot by Minneapolis police while covering the 2020 protests over the death of George Floyd is dying of her injuries. Freelance photojournalist Linda Tirado, 42, entered hospice care in Tennessee earlier this week, and this is according to the National Press Club. The organization said that they're sending their love and admiration to Tirado, as well as funding to support the cost of her care. President Emily Wilkins is, quotes, in contact with Linda and working on a way to honor her legacy. You see, Tirado was 38 in May 2020 when she drove from Nashville to Minneapolis to cover the unrest unfolding after the murder of George Floyd. He died when a white A Minneapolis police officer kneeled on his neck for more than 9 minutes. The city became, of course, the epicenter of a widespread demonstration against racial injustice and police brutality. We know that story. But it's been nearly 4 years since that protest began after the killing of George Floyd. And, Toronto was covering the protest on the night of May 29th when police officers fired non-lethal foam plastic bullets into the crowd. One of them hit her in the eye. And even though she was wearing protective goggles and press credentials, Toronto permanently lost vision in her left eye, which led to additional complications like dizziness and lack of depth perception. The National Press Club said it had learned that Toronto also suffered a traumatic brain injury from the blow and developed dementia as a result. Writer Noah Berlatsky, a friend of Toronto's, wrote on his Substack that she had been struggling with short-term memory troubles, adding that she still has some lucid moments, but they're becoming more infrequent. Toronto who won the Press Club's John Apachon Press Freedom Award in 2020, has been unable to work since her injuries. She's written about her experience, including slamming the police state and political climate under the then President Donald Trump in a 2020 piece in the New Republic. Let this story serve as a reminder of all the people that hold up this democracy. Freedom of the press. The people that bring you your news and information also take extraordinary risks. Sometimes they even risk their lives. They risk their well-being. And here's an example of a journalist that ran to the story, ran to the epicenter of the story, and unfortunately became a part of the story in the worst way. And when we think about what we have an opportunity to do, not just in the November election, but every election, there's a direct correlation between our vote and the kind of climate it creates for all of us in the public square. There was a climate afoot in May 2020 that created the kind of danger that contributed to the injuries of Linda Tirado. And so on today, we speak her name, Linda Tirado. She's in hospice care. And she's done an honorable thing by covering one of the biggest stories of our time, risking her life and well-being in the process. That's no small thing. Let's not let her injuries, let's not let her commitment to journalism, to the First Amendment, let's not let that be in vain. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Febreze. Fabric Talk. Hey, it's me, your couch. Today's my favorite day of the week. Febreze Fabric Spray Day. The occasional deep cleans are nice, but in between, you know I'm needing a refresh. Ooh, here she comes with the Febreze Fabric Spray. Oh yeah, spritz them armrests. Don't be shy. Nothing like a good spray down to get me smelling so fresh and clean. Don't forget my back. Nice. Febreze Fabric Spray. It's just that easy. Now we can both breathe happy. Febreze. La 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 la.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for Progressive Talk Radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to LA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. Let me finish with this. I saw this headline in the Washington Post and absolutely had to share it with you. Your socks are showing your age. Consider this a public service announcement. Your socks are showing your age. Millennials have cutthroat defenses of their low-cut socks as Gen Z embraces crew socks. Yeah, my. As younger consumers have gravitated away from faux sockless look and toward the 80s and 90s styles that emphasize a tall, sometimes even slouchy sock visible far above the sneaker. Retailers have felt the shift. Adidas has seen an increase in web traffic to its crew sock page in the past year, and Under Armour said that the international market for mid-length sock sales have increased from about a third to about half of sock sales from 2019 to 2023, with North America showing a similar uptick over the past year. The debate has consumed media in recent months. Gen Z celebrities such as Kaya Gerber and Lori Harvey have been out and about sporting crew socks with sneakers, in Sabrina Carpenter's case, heels. Headlines warn about toxic sock syndrome and sock war between the generations, while fashion writers have shared advice on how to up your sock game and take advantage of your crew sock trends. And so Gen Z may like crew socks, but they've remained relatively silent on the issue on TikTok and don't seem to care when asked on other parts of social media. Meanwhile, most popular TikToks on the trend war are explainer videos and millennials on the defense. The country is in crisis, wrote menswear writer and commentator Derek Guy on X after a poll from the sportswear company Bennett's revealed 50.3% of its votes preferred normal crew socks. Other videos showed Generation Y bravely wearing hidden socks in public, reluctantly wearing taller socks to stay on trend, or creating makeshift ankle socks by folding longer socks under their heels. And so anybody who, 80s baby, grew up in the 90s, like that's the way we rolled. We didn't have that sort of ankle sock. I remember when the ankle socks were, more widely available. But before that, you took your long sock and you folded it under your heel. And that's what you did. That's what you did. And so, look, it's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to socks. Have fun with your socks, everybody. And also make sure you have a great weekend. I'm wearing my fun socks. I got my White House socks on. And Kamal, our sound engineer, his sock game is it's mismatched today. I was gonna call you out. I was gonna try to say that in a nice way, but that's all right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Remember, it takes a village to produce a more perfect union. My thanks to our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our stand-in sound engineer extraordinaire, Kamal White, our show producer, Robert Battles, and our podcast publishing guru, Odell Bodie. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and you've been listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay cool, be cool. Talk soon.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Doug Davis with the latest from the Black Information Network. Vice President Kamala Harris is promoting reproductive rights next week. The Vice President's visit to Maryland on Monday will coincide with the 2-year anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision overturning the landmark Roe v.